thank you for joining me today. I'm the project manager for Dynamic CCTV and the support team leader. My name's Nathan Garner, those of you that I haven't spoken to before. Today we're going to take a look at the Hik-ProConnect cloud-based solution from Hikvision, which is a powerful new cloud kind of management system for Hikvision devices, which is designed for primarily installers and to allow them to be able to monitor their installs going forward. So we've just got a quick little introductory video. So that's kind of just an introduction video, just kind of showing a couple of capabilities of the Hik-ProConnect solution. But we're going to cover a few of those in the slides that I've got together here, and then we'll move on to a real live demo with main admin account and also a site manager account as well for the sites. So why do we need the Hik-ProConnect solution? It's difficult for installers to be able to talk end users through any issues or faults over the phone, whereas the Hik-ProConnect solution will allow installers to see any issues that have come from the actual systems that are added to the account using the new health monitoring solution for it. So when you've got a lot of different sites that you've got installed, it takes more and more time as you get more sites that have been installed going forward, more difficult to manage, especially multiple employees, of which engineers are responsible for specific sites. With the Hik-ProConnect solution, it does allow you to kind of break these down and assign specific employees to deal with specific sites that have been installed by yourselves there. So with the monitoring solution within Hik-ProConnect, it gives you an option to see any device failures as an exception, which will come through to the web client and also the mobile Hik-ProConnect app. So it helps to see any unforeseeable device failures, so you can see them as an installer, and often you'd know there was an issue before the end user did, so you can be more proactive with your installs. So at the moment, with the HikConnect platform and standalone recorders, you're unable to link, say, alarm input 1 on an MVR to trigger another alarm output on a separate recorder. You're unable to do that at the moment, but with Hik-ProConnect, you can actually do cross-device linkage, which we'll be taking a look at through this as well. At the moment, with recorders as standard, in order to be able to access web configuration of the actual units, you need to manually port forward the site. With Hik-ProConnect, you can access the web front end of the unit through the Hik-ProConnect web portal and be able to actually get into the web front end of the recorder without having to port forward the actual site itself, which makes it a lot easier, because a lot of installs they no longer need port forwarding. But from an installer point of view, to do any changes with the settings or look at why something's dropped offline, you generally need to use the web front end of the unit. But with Hik-ProConnect, that's now doable through the P2P platform without the need to manually port forward the site. Also, with the current applications from Hikvision, they're just branded as Hikvision with the Hik-ProConnect. What you can do now with the Hik-ProConnect solution is you can actually brand the applications, which we're going to take a look at, and I have got one set up that I can show you as well for that. So just a quick overview of the Hik-ProConnect. So it enables remote maintenance. A lot of people now are working more remotely, and it allows you to have more proactive status when it comes to monitoring. It allows you to kind of work smarter, more efficiently. So if you can see that a site's got a HDD failure, for example, you can then call that customer, speak to them, say that you've noticed a HDD failure on their site, and then you can then go get that swapped out for them. So it gives you a more proactive kind of stance with your users. So with the Hik-ProConnect, it is a chargeable service, but it allows you to create your subscription plans so you can have a recurring revenue from your customers. So you're no longer just installing a recorder and then there's no ongoing recurring revenue from them unless you have like a maintenance package with a customer. With HikProConnect, you could then offer them subscription plans to monitor their systems from a health monitoring point of view, and also for you to be able to remotely manage that site still as an ongoing charge to them. So with the Converge solution, this is something that's mentioned quite a lot since HikProConnect's been launched. This allows you to have devices triggering other devices. So for example, with the intercom units, when someone presses the call button on the door station unit, you can set linkage action, so it will actually take a capture of a picture on a camera that's near that door, and that can be on an MVR on site, and that's done via the actual HikProConnect platform there. So this is the actual overview structure of the HikProConnect solution. HikProConnect is for the installer level, for centralized management and easy configuration of the different sites that you have available. And then the HikConnect app is primarily for the end users. So this allows them to be able to view their own system and receive any notifications or anything like that. And then both these platforms are then connected to the cloud servers, which are the AWS servers from Amazon. And this can then link up with CCTV, access control and intercoms, and the Hikvision doorbells as well. This is just a quick picture of the actual web client itself and the mobile application. Generally, I find it easier to use the web portal, but you can do everything on the HikProConnect mobile app as well. But I'm more used to using keyboard and mouse, but either way you can get to anything that you need to through both platforms. So the actual end user, when you add a site to HikProConnect, you can then invite them to be the site owner of the system. So they'll get an invitation on their HikConnect app, and it will ask for you to then have permission to either manage the system, live view the system, or anything like that for installing. And that's done through the HikConnect app for the end users as such for that. So within HikProConnect, you get the remote system management and the health monitoring, which gives you a real-time overview of what's happening within the different sites that you have installed, with a user interface that will show you any exceptions or anything like that, which I'll be able to show you on my one when it comes to the demo, as I do have a few sites that are currently offline. It also helps to reduce the installation time on site. And so, for example, some settings on cameras, especially at night time, there may be little tweaks that need to make to the system. Instead of having to go to the site at night when there's no lighting available, you can actually do it remotely via the HikProConnect by accessing the web front end of the actual system itself. And it will also allow you to get into all the web access through the mobile app as well, so you don't necessarily need to take a laptop to site in order to be able to set up the system. It also gives you the flexible linkage across devices. So usually you'd have to look at something like the Hik Central platform for larger installs in order to be able to have cross-device linkage, but this can be done using the cloud solution with the HikProConnect there. You can also manage your different employees. So as a company, you'd have your main admin login. Once you create your HikProConnect portal account, this will be where you'd then add your individual employees for the system. The main admin account would usually be owned by the owner of the company or the director, and then they'd assign the permissions out to their different employees. That might be where one of them is an installer and engineer, so they may have permission to add devices and access remote configurations of specific sites, where another user may only be able to see the status of the different sites on the health monitoring section. But this would just depend on the scenario, but it's flexible enough to meet the criteria that you need per company basis. So there's also the co-branding function. So once you set up your company account through HikProConnect, you can enable a branding function, and then on the HikConnect apps, your customers would get your company logo and your company details on the about pages of the actual system, and also when the app's actually loading up, it would also show your branding. And this is a fully hosted service in the cloud using the Amazon Web Services. And there's also different subscription offers, depending on what you require in terms of health monitoring for different sites. You may only need a few of them that need that kind of level of support, whereas others you may just want to be able to access the web front end of the units. So it's flexible enough that you're not having to pay for money for subscriptions that you don't actually need. So it's flexible in that way with the system. So for the authorization for the site management, as this is done via HikProConnect, so the way it would work is the installer can either invite the site owner to manage the actual system, or they can apply for site authorization if the end user has already added the recorder to a HikConnect account. If the installer is the one that's initially installing the system, they'll add it to their HikProConnect account first, and then they'd invite the actual site owner to HikConnect, and they'd either need to register an account, or if they've already gotten an account, they'll then be asked to give permission to the installer for the system. So this helps protect customers' privacy requirements, and it also works online to help optimize and shorten the delivery process of the actual system. I won't go into the video, I will show that going forward for that, and these slides will be going out to show the authorization process with the actual solution itself. So this is the remote system and health monitoring management pages in the web portal of HikProConnect. So you've got a user interface that will display any exceptions. It'll also give you a list of all your current exceptions and the different categories they break up into, which I will show on our demo that I do have set up for this, which will make it a bit easier to go through, seeing it in real time. For drilling down into kind of the exceptions that have been triggered between your different sites, and you can see there I've logged in with my employee login. So the only site that I can see there is the Dynamic CCTV site that I created, which has some of the temperature screening cameras and people count camera and the PEZ added on. So this will actually list any exceptions that have been triggered from the device for the last 7 days from when they've been added to the HikProConnect solution, which makes it really easy to see any exceptions are on site. If a customer, for example, phones up and says that the recorder dropped offline or there's footage missing, you can go straight into the exceptions center, click on their site and see what exceptions have actually been triggered, which makes it really simple and easy to kind of find out what's going wrong on site, and then be able to access the web front end of the system as well. And speaking of the web front end, this is how it would display up from the actual HikProConnect. So you can click on the remote configuration option and it will bring up the web front end of the device. So you can see there, this is one of the temperature screening cameras that I logged into that's added to our HikProConnect account, which makes it a lot easier for sites, especially with changing any settings or commissioning the site. And you can go in and install everything, and then once you're back at the office, or the admin team at the office could then configure the storage, record schedules, any events or anything like that could then all be configured remotely through HikProConnect, which makes it really easy to get it up and running as a system. So it does save a lot of time and not as many site visits as well that would be needed. So this is the actual site management page, and so you can see I've drilled down into the Dynamic CCTV site, so it'll give you an overview of the system. So I've got 4 encoding devices added, which are my cameras, recorder with that. We've also got our linkage rule tab, as well as an exception, people counting and temperature screening tabs, which people counting and temperature screening are 2 new features that have just been recently added into HikProConnect that we're still currently testing, but I can give you a little look at those today through the demo as well. So this just gives you an overall view of all the devices on the actual site itself, and then it can also allow you to update the firmware from this page and apply for permission to the site owner to be able to live view the cameras if you're looking at any faults or anything like that. It can be done through this page on the system. So the HikProConnect solution helps to reduce the installation times for yourself. So with the unified web portal, it supports adding devices in batch. So if you've got devices, for example, already added to a HikConnect account, got a lot of devices added in there, you can actually migrate all of those over into the HikProConnect solution nice and easily through that, which I'll show as we come on to our demo there as well. So the new HikProConnect app supports the actual installation side of things. So anything that you can do on the web portal, you can also do on the mobile application itself. And so there isn't the need to have a laptop there to configure the alarms or anything for the devices. That can be done through a HikProConnect app. You can also add and configure devices through the HikProConnect app and also request customer authorization. to view the live view and/or playback of a system through the actual app itself. And this is all using the cloud P2P technology, and so there isn't the need for traditional port forwarding in order to be able to do any of this here. So this is just a kind of overview of the cross-device linkage. So for example, when an intrusion detection occurs, you can have the event received on the recorder, and that could then trigger a separate camera with a siren or a strobe light, which can cause the actual strobe light or audio alarm to trigger on the camera and panic the intruder away. This can receive this intrusion alert from, for example, an access control device. If a door's been forced open, that trigger can then trigger the actual MVR and the camera siren using the Hik-ProConnect platform. Whereas before, this wasn't achievable on smaller scale sites, and you would have needed to look at using something like the Hik Central platform for this. So the Hik-ProConnect solution is a fully cloud hosted service, and so it is using the Amazon AWS services using cloud P2P technology. And so this helps save money when it comes to fixed IP addresses, a third-party DNS service. It also saves time with port forwarding. There wouldn't be a need to do that with this kind of solution. And it's also a flexible and scalable system or service, should I say. So your upfront fees for the solution minimal, so you can start as small as you need to for 1 or 2 devices, and then as your install grows or your customers want to sign up to the monitoring with yourselves as the systems, and you can then scale that up as you go on, which can help save money, and you're not having to spend a lot of money in the initial outlay to sign up to the solution. And because it's cloud-based, software is always kept up to date, the latest features and system enhancements, which is a big benefit for end users, and also anything new getting added into the system as well. So this is just kind of the different subscription offers. So the basic for a free version gives you remote configuration through the web front end, the live view and end user authentication. If you're wanting to be able to view the health monitoring, abnormal devices, logs, cross-device linkage, co-branding, and in future cloud storage, that's part of the maintenance package, which is a yearly payment for it. But this is broken down in devices and such as well, which our sales team will be contacting you after this webinar just to go through some of the costings of the Hik-ProConnect solution for yourselves. But it does have its benefits of giving you a recurring revenue stream from your customers. So it's not just a one install and then any call out charges after that. This can be a monthly recurring fee from the actual end users to yourselves as an ongoing offer for them. So when Hikvision have put together the Hik-ProConnect solution, they ensure that it's secure as it can be as a system. So data is encrypted using HTTPS and TLS protocols, private and secure data transmission. Users have defined AES and RSA encryption. So this will be a stream encryption between your devices. So if anyone intercepts that stream, they can't access it without being able to decode the stream without the encryption key. And because it's using P2P, it establishes a secure link without port forwarding or port mapping, and avoids exposing ports going externally to the WAN on site as well. And the data encryption ensures that personal information like mobile phones, email addresses, and credentials are all encrypted and not leaked to anyone else. The Hik-ProConnect cloud services implements data isolation measures from the application layer, database layer, and the network layer. So it segregates them out and encrypts them to ensure that that data isn't stolen or isn't accessed by anyone that shouldn't be able to access the system. And it is certified by multiple trust authorities on the actual security of the Hik-ProConnect solution for that kind of system. So installer management of end user device is only accessible if the end user gives the installer permission to actually be able to view their site or manage it. The end user can also revoke installer device management via the HikConnect app. If they had fallen out with the installer or they don't want them to be able to live view their cameras in the property, they can revoke that access, which protects their privacy from the system. And the cloud service is deployed from Ireland. So all the data for Hik-ProConnect is stored in Ireland on the AWS servers, and the statements including terms of services, privacy policy, etc. are all included on there as well. So upcoming in regards to HikProConnect, so in future they are bringing cloud storage to the HikProConnect solution, so you'll be able to store footage within the cloud. They're also bringing in the cloud network switch management, so converging switches into the system to be able to do broadband bandwidth visualizations within the system. And it's also coming in to bring in employee management through an attendancing system with HikProConnect. So you'll be able to see your employees' attendances through the system, which can be checked online instead of them coming into the office and signing in. It'll all be done through the HikProConnect app and managed through there as a system. So what we can do now is I'll just switch my screens over onto the other one. 2 seconds. So we'll just go on to the live demo. I'm just going to log in with my accounts. Reshare my screen. So you should now be able to see my web browser there. Just log in to our main account here. So you can see there we've now logged into our main management portal, which is my colleague's account if we've got set up. So this is the main home page of the HikProConnect web portal. So you can see we've got 4 sites in total that are currently added to our main company HikProConnect solution. We've got current of 3 current exceptions on the system, and if we look down at the bottom here, we've got our devices overview with 2 devices shown as offline or exceptions, and you can see our recently visited sites down the right hand side and our current total number of employees that have been added. So if I go on to our employees, you can see we've got 3 employees here, colleague Graham, Reese, and then myself, Nathan, at the bottom there with the actual site. You can see the individual sites that we're assigned to. So for example, if you click on mine, I've got 1 site created with 4 devices, which is called Dynamic CCTV, and I'm authorized and monitoring the actual site itself. I can also go in and add a new site through here. So I can call this one, for example, Training Academy. Training and B. And if I OK that, I've then created a new site. So if I go back to my site list on the system, which hasn't updated, but I can show you that on my employee account from there and for the sites we've got. So if I click on Dynamic CCTV, you can see I've currently got 4 devices that are added in, and you can see I've got an iSeries recorder there that's showing offline, and then I've got 3 cameras added into the system. One of them a thermal camera, a PEZ, and a people counting camera, which will come back onto this when I switch over to my employee account. If I go into health monitoring and go to health status, this gives me an overview of all the different sites that are added to our main global account. So you can see that Dynamic CCTV is the one that's assigned to myself, and we've also got Fred's Bakery, Test Shop, and Training Academy, which you can see I've spelt wrong there, all listed there. So I can see this as a global overview of all the systems that I'm logged into the main admin or owner of the company account. Each individual employee will only be able to see sites that they're assigned to through the actual permissions, and I can then filter this down by video intercoms, encoding devices, security control panels, access control, and also by doorbells as well, which can do that through there. On the exception center, this is where we can go in and look if there's been any exceptions from different sites. So you can see there has been one which is from the Dynamic CCTV site, and that was sent to the site owner, which was myself, and it's been received by email as an event, and also the mobile client and the web portal when I was logged in last night when I received these events for that. What the actual admin account also has is the company section. So this is where, when you initially set up your HikProConnect account, this is where you'd set up all of your company information as a system. It'll give you current status with regards to health monitoring, when your trial period ends, which for this account is 1st September 2020, and our current total of max employees that we can actually add to the system is set to unlimited. So the way the subscriptions work is you'd purchase extra accounts for your different employees, so it's scalable in terms of size of the different installers. And you can see all of our company information that's added in there. So I've added in our company logo, I've set our website address, and I've put in our physical address as well. Once that's done, you can then go into co-branding, and this is where you'd actually set your end users HikConnect apps to actually be branded with your company logos as well as your company information, which will give you an example of when you initially enable this, and you can upload your company logo. This is limited, so the height of the actual logo is 200 pixels by 200 pixels, and the width is 600 pixels for the logos themselves in order for them to be compatible with the system. So this means that you get more brand awareness with your users when they're showing their friends or anything like that. Your company logo is coming up there when they're using the actual app itself. If we go into the employee section, so this is where I can go in and create a new employee. So if I enter the email address of project@ccctv.com, you can then see I can assign different roles to that user account. So I can set them to an IT manager, so they can manage all these sites. They can have an administration role, which will give them be able to manage all the different assigned sites, similar to the main admin account. So if you have multiple directors of a company, they can be assigned to administrator roles, which will give them full control of the actual system. And then we've got site managers that would be assigned as your installers and engineers that can be able to add new sites, which they then manage, and you can also assign sites as the global admin of the system. So you can assign different sites depending on location of your engineers through the system. And you can also turn off their permissions. So if, for example, the employee was suspended or something like that, you could disable their account temporarily, or if there's any issues, and then if they entirely leave the company, you can actually delete them as an employee. But at the moment I'm set to site managers on these two, so these can't be deleted for the sites. If we go into our roles and permissions, so these are the 3 roles automatically on the system. We can go in and add a new role, so we can create engineers. We can give them manage assigned site, managed account and role, and managed service packages. It's as simple as that to create a new role within the HikProConnect, and then we can add employees to that role just by clicking on that button there. What we've also got is an operation log. So this allows the main admin to search back the log for specific users. So you can actually see what each employee's done within their HikProConnect solution. And so when they've failed to input the password correctly, if they're disabled, anything like that, if anything's been changed on a recorder. So you can see last night I changed some settings on one of our devices, which is logged on the actual system. And I logged into the remote configuration at 10:30 last night of one of our recorders. And these are logged for up to 30 days on the system. If it's through the web client, you'll get a monitor with a little E icon. And then, for example, I use an iPhone, so it's detected that I was using a mobile client and it was the iOS version of that. So this is useful to see what engineers have done on a system, if anything's been changed, if there was a device live view failed error, configuration in the LAN where it's failed, where it's timed out when trying to connect to the web client of the device, which makes it really useful to go back and see what's been done on any of the different sites. You then go to the business section. So this is where you'd see the service package that you're subscribed to with Hikvision, and it will give you the current status of your package. So whether you need to look at adding more users or anything like that, that will give you within this screen exactly what you've purchased so far. Ours is currently set to unlimited at the moment during the trial period for the system. What I can then do is if I log out of this account, and instead log in with my employee account, You can see there that there's 5 sites in total, and I'm currently managing one of the sites, and it also gives me a list of the abnormal devices at the bottom. So I've got one that's showing as abnormal, similar to how it did on the main admin account as well. And you can see there I've just got notification through one that I didn't accept yesterday. I didn't acknowledge it, so it's brought through to the web portal in the top right hand corner saying that device is offline on the system. What we can also do from here is HikProConnect device migration. So if I click on this option for the system, I can then enter the account details of my HikProConnect account, and it will then add all those devices into the HikProConnect solution. So if you had your company account set up on HikProConnect and you wanted to import all of your devices, instead of having to manually do each individual site, you can do that as an automatic import through that tool there for the system. So what I can do is, if I go into a site, which you can see there, I've got my Dynamic CCTV site. If I click on the site name, it's then taken me into the devices page for the different devices. So you can see one of my recorders is offline there for the system, and it's also saying that the DDNS isn't configured, so it's not set up for manual port forwarding, so it gives you that status there. But this is showing offline because it's currently unplugged to give an exception. I've also got one of our thermal cameras added here, which is one of the bi-spectrum units. And what I can do with this one is, if I click on the cog there for remote configuration, this will then bring up the web front end of the temperature screening camera. So you can see there, I haven't had to log in or anything because I've already got permission to access the remote configuration of the device. I can go into the maintenance settings, access the logs on the recorder itself, so I can search for those. You can also create new accounts through the system for local access. If you need to add in extra accounts for your different users, you can do that remotely through HikProConnect for their local accounts on the recorders themselves. And I can also go in and edit any network settings through there, so I have full access to the full web front end of the actual device without the need to port forward the actual system there for the site. And it's also the same for the PEZ that I've got set up and the people counting camera. What we can also do from this page is click on upgrade device, and this will check to ensure that all the devices for the site are on the latest firmware versions. If they aren't on the latest firmware, it would then allow you to then update the firmwares for the site through this web portal. So you don't need to go to site and actually update the device manually. You can do it remotely via the HikProConnect through there. What we've also got here is a tab for linkage rules. So this is where we can set up different rules based on the actual system. So you can see I've got an event created there for motion detection, which can trigger captures on the thermal camera. So that's between 2 completely separate devices that just added into the same site for that. So if we take a look at this, we can click on add linkage rule. So we've got a couple of different ones that have already been created by default from the system. And so we've got one for visitor calling. So this is using the intercom door stations. So if you presses the call button, that could then trigger a capture on another camera that you assign to the system. And we've also got a perimeter zone alarm, which if I click on that one, create a few different triggers. So if I call this webinar linkage, so if I had a perimeter zone set up, I'd be able to select that through there, and I can trigger multiple actions. So I can select my temperature screening camera there to take a capture. I can then select a preset or alarm output to be triggered. So if I select the people counting camera, select alarm output 1, that can also be triggered. I can also set to call a preset on a dome camera, and then I can set which preset or patrol I want that event to then trigger. So I can click on preset 2 through there. If you use an access control, for example, if you had line crossing set up on a camera You could configure the doors, so if at night someone jumps over the back fence, it will lock the door so they remain closed, can't enter a code to then get in the door, and that would then notify through to the HikConnect apps as well. And you can also customize the linkage schedule, so what days you want the event to be active for, and the start and end time on each of those days as well. You can also create a blank rule, so if I just call this one test linkage. So this is creating our own configuration, so I can select our temperature screening camera, and I can have it set to use motion detection, face detection, intrusion and or line crossing. So I can set face detection and add a linkage rule to, say for example, capture, call a preset, so I can set my IP dome camera there, which is the 425𝐂𝐕. If I click on that, I can then set what the preset is that I want it to be, so it can be a patrol. You can also do some of the default preset calls as well to call the OSD menu or anything like that if that was needed. And I can set that to be preset 2, and I want the linkage to be for all days. If I click on OK, that's then saved that linkage action rule into the site for that system. So whenever a face is captured or face detected on the temperature screening camera, it will trigger the PEZ to move to preset number 2 for the system. What we can also do is set up our exceptions, so where we actually want to receive these exceptions through to. And so by default, they'll always come through to the portal. If the engineers are using the mobile app, that can be enabled as well as email, and it would send the email to the email address that the user account was created with for HikProConnect. And then we can select the different exceptions that we want it to send through to the actual events. So it can be device offline, if HDD failure is detected. These are currently getting updated, and there is more since we initially looked at this a few months ago with the Hikvision when they initially launched this testing. So it's customizable depending on the different device. You may only want to receive events via the web portal, for example, where you can see them come through, or you may just want to receive emails, which can be configured through here. And you can enable them all or disable them on each individual one through this page as well. And you can also see the different channels that are set up for that. So I can set for that one, the actual camera, I only want to know if there's any video loss on that camera. So you can customize that per your camera channels as well through that solution. The 2 new tabs that we've got, which have been recently added into the HikProConnect, are people counting and temperature screening. So the people counting using the density control solution, which we've had a little look at. So on the actual device, I've got one of our people counting cameras added to the site. Once it's added, you then need to activate the actual people counting service through HikProConnect for that camera. Once that's added, you can add multiple people counting cameras into this. You can then configure the actual density control. So if I click on to edit this one, I've just given it a group name of Dynamic, and the calculation mode is just a standard for the camera. Can add multiple cameras into this, but I've only got one people counting camera added to our site currently. And then we can set the maximum number of people that are allowed within the building or within the group. So I can set that to 8. And the push alarm to HikConnect is for the end users, the site owner, called through HikProConnect. So if the number of people in the building exceeds 8, they'll then get a notification through to the HikConnect mobile app on their phone. For that, which we're still currently testing on as the solution, because it's only just recently been released, this section. We can then go into temperature screening, which is a similar kind of system. So this allows you to receive abnormal temperature alerts through to the HikConnect mobile app using the HikProConnect. So click on the little arrow there, because this one's already set up. You can see the service is activated on camera 1. If I click on the configuration cog there, I can set the temperature threshold. So usually these set to 37.5, and I've got mass detection enabled as well. And if I OK that, it'll actually push that setting to the camera itself. So if anyone's detected on the camera with a temperature above 37.5 degrees, it'll alert the site manager through the HikConnect app, which it will also then allow you to actually export a log through the app, which can then be emailed as well. So any abnormal temperatures, it'll list them and it can be emailed from the HikConnect app through there, which I do have an example of, which I can show you. Do new share, and if we go to this one, so you can see this is an email received from the HikConnect app through the HikProConnect service with the actual temperature export sent as well from the actual system. And I've also got one that I received for the exception notification email. So this is an email that I received at 5 to 10 saying that my recorder was offline, that was added to my specific site. So it will give you the site name and the device name, as well as the time that it was detected as offline and what that exception is from HikConnect, which is really powerful as a system. Makes it a lot easier to manage the different sites for there. So if I switch back to system. So that was just an overview of HikProConnect, the web portal side of things, as well as what can be achieved with the system. I've just got a couple more bits to cover and then we can go on to the Q&A session for this webinar. So we do have 2 different brochures that will be linked in our slides for temperature screening and density control solutions that we currently offer. And there's also a new mass detection solution that will be going out today as well. With the tech support service offered from Dynamic CCTV, we do have 10 technical members of staff that are working on the phones and ready to take a call. We don't have a queuing or ticketing system. When you do call our tech team, we are there to answer your phone calls and we will help you with any issues that you do have with us. And we're also on social media, so if you want to be kept up to date with the latest releases or any tips or anything like that, please make sure you follow us on social media such as LinkedIn. And we do a technical update as well. We do have a YouTube channel, which we'll also upload this webinar to, as well as all of our past webinars and our how-to videos, which are pretty useful there as well. So if you have any questions, you can start working through those now. So Robert's asked what you need to do on a new device to add it to the service. So similar to how you would with HikConnect, on the actual device itself, it needs to have the platform access enabled on the recorder, and it does need to be shown as online in the platform access page. Once it's online, then can add it via its serial number. So if I show you on my system here, we go to our site, and if I create a new site, test. Go into this one and create a new device. So if I click on add device here, there's 2 different options for adding devices. So the online device shows any devices that the system can currently see on the network that you're connected to at the time, similar to how SADP works. So what we can do is we can just simply select a device there, click on next, enter the admin password for the device, and that has added the device in there for the system. And also there's an option to manually add, so you can add using the Connect system, so it'll be using the device serial number and the verification code for the device. You can also add devices via an external IP address or local IP address if you know that, or domain address. And you can also do a batch import, which will ask you to download a template, which you can then enter in all of your devices, and then you can just simply upload that into the actual HikProConnect to add all the devices there for the system. Barry has asked, he currently has 200 customers' systems and doorbells shared from customers' HikConnect accounts to mine. Will I be able to migrate all of those in one go? And will they require any additional authorization from my customers? So if they're added to your account as the main account, you can migrate all those over into HikProConnect, and the customers will then get a notification asking them to give you authorization to be able to manage their sites for that. Roy has asked which NVRs/firmware versions are compatible. So we do have a current compatibility list, which is updated regularly as there's new updates to HikProConnect, which I can email over to you, Roy. When you initially add the device to the HikProConnect, it will check for compatibility and will let you know if the firmware on the unit needs updating or whether or not it's compatible or not through there. Maz asked, can we take backup or footage through this app? So currently it will give you live view and playback through the HikProConnect. The cloud storage side of things isn't available yet, and it is coming towards the end of this year for that solution. Roberts asked, access to the web portal, can you upgrade the camera firmware? So through the web portal, you can update the firmwares of the devices, and you can go into the actual maintenance section of the web front end of that device and manually update your firmware file. If it's not the latest firmware that you want on the unit, if it's a different firmware version, you can manually do that through the maintenance tab when accessing the web front end of the device. Ian's asked, have you imported out from HikConnect? If the installer has registered devices, the installer keep control. So once you import the devices from HikConnect, you then assign site managers, which would be your customers' end users, at which point the end user would give them permissions that they've requested as an installer to the system. Barry's asked, how do you request authorization for access to an existing system owned by the customer on their HikConnect account? So what you will do on the actual HikConnect app, they'd do it from their side of things, where you would actually request that permission. They'd still get the pop. It's similar, but because it's already added to HikConnect, what you'll do is on the web portal, when you migrate from HikConnect to HikProConnect, you'd log in with the customer's HikConnect login and import their devices to your HikProConnect portal, and they'd then get the messages on their app asking to give you permission to manage those systems. If there's anything that I haven't covered, my contact details are on screen there. Please feel free to drop me an email. I'll send a copy out of all these slides and the compatibility list that's currently available for which devices are compatible with HikProConnect. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully it's been useful for you all as the new cloud solution has become available. If you have any queries, as ever, please feel free to get in touch with us at Dynamic CCTV. We're always happy to help. Please watch out for the next webinars. It'll be announced in the next week or so. Some more stuff that we're going to be covering for the different Hikvision solutions. Thank you. Bye.